I dated my childhood sweetheart for 5 years. He finally decided to propose to me. I arrived at the proposal site filled with anticipation, but unexpectedly, I overheard him talking with his friends. Catherine, only after being together did I realize she is really boring. Besides being good at studying, she knows nothing about other things. The proposal was just to casually make her happy. The man who once swore he would never let me down. Now he is holding another woman. He said to her, "She is nowhere near as romantic and charming as you. Of course, I love you the most, baby." Others burst into laughter, teasing him. "James, are you not afraid your wife will find out and cause a scene?" He smiled faintly and said, "She only wants to marry me, even if she finds out, so what?" I stood outside the private room, without saying a word. I silently changed my ticket to go home. Laughter echoed from the private room in the bar. I held onto my coat and continued walking forward. The closer I got, the faster my heart raced. We have been in a relationship for 5 years. He finally decided to get married. Tonight he is going to propose to me. Still not close enough. James's deep and pleasant voice came from the slightly open door. "Don't tease me. I'm different from you all. I grew up with my wife since childhood. Our relationship has always been very good. She is my first love, and the most important person in my heart. Unlike you guys, your relationships are so casual." A smile unconsciously appeared at the corner of my mouth. My heart felt sweet. Just as I was about to continue walking forward, he suddenly sighed and said, "The one I like the most is Catherine, but after being together, I realized she was quite boring. Aside from being good at studying, she can't do anything else." I suddenly stopped in my tracks. "Hold tightly onto your coat. What about me? James, your favorite is her. So what am I? You said last night that your favorite is me." A soft, aggrieved voice cried out. It sounds like she's about to cry. The group of friends drinking with James burst into laughter again. "Girl, forget it. What men say in bed. How many of those can be taken seriously? James is about to take Catherine home to meet his parents. They're getting married. In your situation, how can it be compared to the legitimate wife? Competing for affection is rather dull." James listened to their words. He wasn't angry. He smiled and gently reproached. "She's still a young girl. Don't say that. Don't cry anymore. If you keep crying, your beautiful face will get ruined." "It really breaks my heart to see." James's words seemed to lift her spirits. She said playfully, "Then you can kiss me. I won't cry anymore." James smiled helplessly. "Okay, you're always so troublesome." James readily agreed. Then he kissed the woman in his arms on the cheek. Seeing that James really kissed her, she obediently snuggled into his embrace. She said in a sweet voice, "You treat me the best, darling." She then asked, "You tell me, who is the person you love the most?" James didn't want to ruin the mood. He gently rubbed her head. With a lazy smile, he said, "She's not as romantic and charming as you. Of course, I love you the most." "Baby, I just wanted to tease her at first. I mentioned proposing to her, but I didn't expect him to actually say. I said I wanted to propose to her just to fool around." I was momentarily stunned. The clothes in my hand fell to the ground. I can't believe he would say something like that. His proposal was actually a lie to me. It was just for fun, that's all. The people nearby started to cheer again. He asked with a smile, "James, your skill in teasing could be taught in a class. Are you really not afraid of your wife causing a scene if she finds out?" James seems unwilling to say more. There's a hint of irritation in his tone. Don't say anything reckless. Just don't let her know. After all, I've been with her for 5 years. He seems to think his previous words were a bit too much. His tone softened. He sighed and said, "She has always wanted to marry me. If she knew about this now, she would definitely be very sad. I can't bear to see her sad." James really knows how to handle things. He manages things at home very steadily, and he does well in outside matters too. I feel a chill all over my body. My heart aches in waves. Here I stand, full of anticipation. It feels like I've become a joke. I lowered my head to pick up the coat that had fallen on the ground. This coat was a gift I bought for him. He never wore it even once. He said he liked the clothes I bought him the most. I took a moment to collect myself. Suddenly, I laughed. Standing here, it dawned on me. I had lost even the thought of going in to confront him. James at 18, always revolving around me. He swore that he would never let me down in this lifetime and would never do anything to hurt me. He even vowed, if he broke his promise, he would never have a good outcome in this life. We grew up together. We have 5 years of feelings. But looking back now, everything seems so absurd and laughable. A few days ago, James even told me he wanted to go back with me to meet my parents. He genuinely wanted to be with me. Now that I think about it, it's ridiculous how laughable all these years of feelings are. I turned and walked away. When I reached the hotel entrance, I just happened to see a man wearing a baseball cap nearby. He wasn't dressed warmly. Standing there, it seemed like he was waiting for a ride. I didn't think much of it. I walked over and tapped his shoulder. I said, "This piece of clothing is a gift for you. It's new. I'm not planning to wear it anymore." I draped the coat over his shoulders. Then I got into the car I had arranged in advance and went home. After returning home, I quietly organized the things in the room. Looking at this little nest I had carefully arranged, I once thought it would be my warm harbor. It was our home, James and mine. Until today, I still fantasized about living happily with him. It's a pity. He betrayed me, and I have zero tolerance for betrayal. I packed up all my things. I didn't keep any of the gifts James gave me. All those couple mugs, couple pajamas, and so on have all been packed and thrown into the trash bin downstairs. Since I've decided to part ways, there's no need to keep these things anymore. The high-speed train ticket I bought a week in advance was changed directly to this midnight. I dragged my suitcase and left the home I shared with James. I hurried to catch the train. I got on the high-speed train. After the train started moving, I realized James had called me over a dozen times. He also sent many messages. I had not responded at all, as if I had disappeared from the world. "Catherine, where have you been? Why are there so few things at home? Your suitcase is missing. All our things have been thrown downstairs by you. What happened, Catherine? Please reply to my message if I did something wrong. Can you let me explain? Don't leave me behind. Is that okay?" Looking at the call from James and the texts he sent, I can almost see him standing in front of me with red eyes, asking me what he did wrong. He seems willing to change. If I hadn't seen him cheat with my own eyes, I really thought he loved me. I even wanted to ask him, since he loves me so much, why did he still cheat? Besides the messages from James, I received a new friend request. I clicked to accept. As soon as I added the friend, the other party sent a message. "Hey, sister, even if James wants to take you back to meet his parents, so what? He really likes me tonight. He even took me to your house. We were busy, but he kept calling you, you tell me. Who does he really care about?" From the phone screen, I can almost hear the provocative tone from the other side. This makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. I close my eyes. I just turned off my phone. When I opened the door to my house, Mom saw me. She looked very surprised. "Catherine, you said you would come back with James next week. Why are you home early?" The moment I saw Mom, I felt especially upset inside. I couldn't help but drop my suitcase. I hugged her tightly. I said to her, "Mom, I really miss you." I didn't respond to Mom's question. I just held her tightly. Teardrops flowed down uncontrollably. Mom seemed to sense something. She didn't ask any further. She just let me hold her and cry. I slept the whole day at home. Only then did my emotions slowly calm down. I had just woken up. Mom urged me to put on a pretty dress, and she wanted me to put on makeup. I groggily followed along. "Put on your makeup. Put on your dress." Then I asked her, "Mom, what's this all about?" "Your Uncle John and his family are back from abroad. I'll take you to meet them. We'll have a meal together. Uncle John and your parents were high school classmates. They have a very close relationship. They moved abroad when I was about 5 or 6. We took a taxi to the reserved private room in the restaurant. As soon as we entered, I saw Uncle John and Aunt Mary sitting together. On the far right sat a tall man. That coat he was wearing, I felt like I had seen him before. Before I could think much more, my mom pulled me down to sit. "This is Ethan, right?" I didn't expect he had grown up so much. "This is Catherine. You should still remember her. When you went abroad as a child, you wanted to take her with you." My mom smiled and said to Ethan, but I really wasn't in the mood to listen to any of this. My eyes were fixated on the coat Ethan was wearing. This coat, it looks a lot like the one I sent out last night. "Catherine, what are you looking at? Why aren't you greeting your brother Ethan? You've been staring at him." My mom's disapproving voice pulled me back to reality. I awkwardly smiled at Ethan. I forced myself to call him Brother Ethan. Ethan was looking at me over there. He heard me call him. He smiled gently. Aunt Mary also laughed and said, "This child is still shy. This won't do. What will happen when you get married in the future?" Aunt Mary's words caught me off guard. I was stunned. My mom patted my head and said with a smile, "This was decided before you were born. Bringing you here this time is just to let you get to know each other, so you can be psychologically prepared." She suddenly leaned close to my ear and whispered, "Catherine, James isn't good enough for you. Let's not bother with him anymore. This time, let's choose someone else. Ethan is quite reliable, just trust me on this. At that moment, Uncle John said with a smile, maybe we should be here. They both felt a bit awkward. Let's go. Let them talk privately. After Uncle John and Aunt Mary finished speaking, they got up and left. My mom quickly followed them out. It seemed like it was prearranged. Only Ethan and I were left sitting face to face. Ethan asked me, I'll call you that. You don't mind, do you? Ethan asked with a smile. Catherine, I didn't know what to say at that moment, so I just nodded. I didn't recognize you last night. You should be able to recognize me now. Ethan looked at me with an uncomfortable expression. He sighed helplessly. I happened to see James cheating last night. I was in a really bad mood. Ethan also noticed that something was off with me at that time. Thinking of this, I felt even more awkward. You don't have to feel pressured because of my situation with my parents. If you really don't like me, I can clarify things with them, but I really like you. I hope to have the chance to pursue you. Is that okay? I was taken aback for a moment. I looked at Ethan. I didn't expect him to take the initiative to bring it up. Ethan said seriously, I know you have had relationships before. You might have just broken up not long ago, and you haven't fully moved on. But one can't always be trapped in past emotions. If we try to spend time together, and you still feel nothing for me, I won't force you. Do you think that's okay? With that said, I agreed, seeing me nod. Ethan smiled very gently. We had a meal together. We bought movie tickets and planned to watch a movie. He took my hand. Just as we were about to enter the cinema, someone bumped into us from behind. It separated Ethan and me. Catherine left without a word. It was because of meeting this person. James shouted angrily in my ear. His eyes were bloodshot. He looked exhausted. His fists were clenched tightly. Without saying a word, he swung directly at Ethan's face, seeing James about to strike. I felt a tightness in my chest. I quickly pushed Ethan away and stood in front of him. James, what are you planning to do? Seeing me protect Ethan behind me, James' eyes turned red. He looked at me in disbelief and said, Catherine, how could you protect him? How can you treat me this way? I looked at him coldly and said calmly, James, last night when you were drinking, I was worried about you. I specially went to deliver a coat to you. It's at your room's doorstep. What you said. I heard it all. As soon as I saw him, the image of him kissing another woman last night immediately flashed in my mind. That image made me feel extremely uncomfortable. James, you were holding another woman last night, called me boring and lacking in romance, even said that I wasn't your favorite. So why are you pretending in front of me now? What do you really want? As James listened to me, his face gradually turned pale. His eyes showed surprise and unease. His hands trembled slightly. Reaching out towards me, as if he wanted to get closer to me, he asked, You saw everything? Catherine, I drank too much last night. It's my fault. Can you forgive me? I coldly smiled and said to James, You know very well, I cannot tolerate betrayal. Come to me for forgiveness only after you've made a mistake. It means nothing to me. James responded, Catherine, even if I really did something to hurt you, you don't need to find a stranger to provoke me. This man behind you, is he really better than me? We grew up together. We understand each other. Even I can make mistakes. How can he be any better than me? I have tried to make amends many times, but still haven't received your forgiveness. James's expression became ugly. His tone also became rude. He said, Sir, no matter how bad I am, I would never take infidelity for granted, nor would I compare it to others. Just based on this point, I believe I'm better than you. Ethan stepped out from behind me. He took a step forward and stood in front of me. He said firmly, What right do you have to intervene? This is a matter between Catherine and me. It's not up to you to manage. James looked at Ethan. He scoffed. Then he said to me, Did I say something wrong? You usually act like a block of wood, so dull. You're not even as interesting as other women. Besides, I'm a man. Men are bound to make mistakes. I just accidentally made a mistake once. Why do you have to be so calculative? Can't you be a little more forgiving? I'm worried something happened to you. I couldn't sleep all night. As a result, you're cold towards me instead. Don't you care about me at all? I never thought James would say such hurtful things. Now, I really don't know whether to blame myself for misjudging him or if he's just good at pretending. I told him directly, James, let's break up. Don't come looking for me again. Consider it my blindness in the past, after being with you for so many years. I took a deep breath and directly proposed to break up. Actually, this should have been said last night. I was just too emotional at the time. I actually forgot to mention this. Hearing me mention the breakup, James got anxious too. He said firmly, Break up, then break up. Catherine, don't regret it if he cheated. Don't come back to me crying. Ethan held me, with his hand on my shoulder. I smiled at him. I won't give Catherine a chance to regret. It's because you didn't cherish it. That made her leave. James's face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. In the end, he left in a mess after James left. I breathed a sigh of relief. I smiled apologetically at Ethan. I'm sorry for you having to deal with such unpleasantness. Ethan lowered his hand from my shoulder. He said with a smile, what makes me happier is, when you encounter such things, I am here by your side. At least he can't do anything to you. I feel heat on my face. Look down. I dare not look Ethan in the eye. My heart is racing. He continued speaking. I took the liberty to decide. To pretend to be your new boyfriend. I hope you won't be angry. I quickly responded. No, I won't. I really appreciate you. Are we still going in to watch that movie? Of course, we already bought the tickets. Why not watch it after the movie? Ethan drove me home. When we reached my doorstep, my phone rang. I took out my phone to check. It was the long, quiet high school class group. The class monitor tagged everyone in the group, asking who wants to attend the class reunion. It's said to be held in a couple of days. Catherine and James, you two are still together, right? I heard you are about to get married. Congratulations. This time, come back and meet old classmates. I frowned, thinking about the unpleasant argument I had with James today. I really didn't want to go. Just then, Ethan noticed my expression. He asked with concern, what's wrong? I sighed and said, the class monitor from high school organized a reunion, but James will be there too. Ethan guessed what I was thinking. He asked me directly, you actually want to go to the reunion, but you don't want to see James. So you're planning to decline, right? I nodded, admitting that he was right. He gently patted my head and smiled as he said, just do what you want to do. If you need help, you can always come to me. I looked up and met Ethan's gentle eyes. When I'm with him, I always feel very comfortable because he always cares about my emotions and feelings. This is completely different from James. Maybe it's because we are of similar age. We grew up together, playfully fighting as kids. Later, when we were together, most of the time, I was accommodating and taking care of him. But beside Ethan, I felt the feeling of being cared for the first time in front of him. I seemed to be able to act like a child. No need to think too much about the consequences. I sent a message in the class group. I will definitely attend the class reunion. But everyone, please don't make any jokes. James and I have broken up. As soon as those words were spoken, no one in the class group spoke for a moment. After a while, someone tagged James asking if it was true. James sent a message in the group. Everyone, don't take it to heart. Catherine and I just had a small argument. Seeing this message, everyone in the group breathed a sigh of relief. You really scared me earlier. I almost didn't dare to speak up, so it was just a little tantrum. That's good. If you really had broken up, I might really lose faith in love. The group chat is lively again. James's actions made me very uncomfortable. But no matter how I explain, they just laugh cheerfully, as if they understand everything. I gently pressed my lips together and turned to look at Ethan. I said softly, I might really need you to accompany me to the class reunion. Ethan smiled slightly and replied, it's my honor. On the day of the class reunion, I was the first to arrive. Ethan messaged me, wait for me, I'll be there in 20 minutes. The party shouldn't have started yet. I said, don't worry. It starts in half an hour. Half of the people have already arrived in the private room. James is sitting inside. When he saw me push the door open, he immediately stopped chatting with old classmates and walked towards me. He wanted to take my arm. He said, Catherine, you're finally here. I waited a long time for you. James's actions are very natural, as if we never had any conflicts or broke up. Seeing us so close, the people behind began to cheer and make jokes. It's been so many years. You two are still so affectionate. When you get married, you can't forget to give us wedding candies. I broke free from James's hand. I took a few steps back. I said to him, James, if you forget, I can remind you, we have already broken up. After saying that, I looked back at those teasing old classmates. Maybe I didn't make it clear yesterday. I really have broken up with James. If you don't believe me, my boyfriend will be here soon. Even though I say this, James's expression didn't change at all. He still smiled as warmly as a spring breeze. Catherine, you're just sulking at me, just casually finding a boyfriend to save face. It's fine to deceive oneself, but you can't deceive me. After all these years of our relationship, how could it just end like that? Several friends close to James laughed and said, yeah, sister-in-law, don't mess around with brother James anymore. Some playful teasing is quite fun. But if it escalates, it won't be good. The classmates who hadn't seen each other for a long time understood immediately after hearing them. Even a few girls who brought their boyfriends laughed and said to me, "Catherine, don't be angry anymore. Men are all like this. Make him kneel on durian later. He'll behave then." Everyone thinks that James and I are just having a little conflict. It's not a real breakup. I'm holding back a lot of frustration inside. It's an awkward situation. James's expression is getting worse and worse. James tightly held me in his arms. He whispered softly in my ear. "Catherine, I thought about it carefully after I got back last night. You can't possibly like someone else this quickly. In your heart, you still love me. We've been together for so many years. Can't you give me a chance? Will you forgive me just this once, as long as you no longer have contact with him? Forgive me. I will definitely turn over a new leaf from now on. I will treat you well. Look, everyone thinks we are still in love. Can you bear to let me lose face?" James's words surprised me. He is so confident and shameless. All I feel in my heart is laughter. I used all my strength to break free. I pushed him away forcefully. I said coldly, "James, don't be so disrespectful. I am seriously proposing a breakup. This is not a joke." My voice clearly echoed throughout the room. Everyone heard it loud and clear. Some people whispered among themselves, "It seems like they really have broken up. Catherine is so resolute. She doesn't seem to be just throwing a tantrum. If she's throwing a tantrum, she shouldn't act like this at a class reunion. It seems they really have broken up." Why did James say that Catherine is just being moody? Is he trying to use this opportunity to win her back? I think that's possible. James seemed a bit awkward because of my actions and words. His expression also darkened. "I'm sorry, I'm late." A clear and gentle voice came from outside. The door opened. Ethan walked in. As soon as he entered, he walked over to my side. He linked his arm with mine. Smiling, he said to everyone, "I'm Catherine's boyfriend, Ethan. I'm here to accompany her to the reunion. Oh, her ex-husband is here too. Good thing I came." Only then did Ethan notice James. His tone was filled with surprise and relief. James's expression grew even darker. Ethan stood tall. He was handsome, wearing a black trench coat. It appears both serious and stern. His smile is polite yet distant. Only when facing me will he show a gentle smile. Many of the girls who came back for the reunion are a bit envious. They are whispering, "Catherine is really capable. She left that handsome childhood friend, and now found such a good one." At first, I thought James was quite suitable for her, but now it seems Ethan by her side suits her better. Indeed, Ethan has completely overshadowed James. The frustration in my heart has finally dissipated. Seeing James's bad complexion, I deliberately moved closer to Ethan and helped him straighten out his slightly messy clothes. "It's fine. As long as you came, that's enough. The party hasn't started yet. No one will mind." Ethan was taken aback for a moment. His ears turned slightly red, but he didn't say anything. He just nodded gently throughout the entire party. He has been sitting next to me the whole time. I was having a great time chatting with a few close old classmates when we were talking to the point of being dry-mouthed. She even thoughtfully poured me a glass of water. This action made everyone around envious. In contrast, James's mood was clearly low. He looked gloomy. He kept looking my way, but because there were so many people, he couldn't come over to find me directly. He could only glare coldly at Ethan. His eyes were filled with hostility. After the party ended, Ethan drove me home. "Thanks to you. Otherwise, I really couldn't get past James tonight." I stood at my doorstep and sincerely thanked him. Ethan smiled and said, "If you really want to thank me, please treat me to a meal tomorrow." There was a smile at the corner of his mouth. His gaze was gentle. His smile left me momentarily stunned. When I came back to my senses, my heart was racing. My face felt slightly warm. I said, "Okay, I'll treat you to dinner tomorrow." We smiled at each other. After saying goodbye, I stood at the door, watching him walk away. I returned to my room, reflecting on everything that happened today. Having feelings for a good person like Ethan. Actually, it's quite easy. If I were to talk about my relationship with James, that developed slowly over time. But with Ethan, it might really be love at first sight, thinking about meeting him for dinner tomorrow. I fell asleep feeling happy. The next day I woke up. I was almost at the place where I agreed to meet Ethan. Messages from James kept coming in. He said, "Catherine, I've broken up with that woman. Come back." Okay, at yesterday's class reunion, James clearly realized that I was really going to break up with him. I told him, "I can't live without you." What happened that time was a moment of confusion on my part. thinking about that possibility. He felt scared. I impatiently blocked him and deleted him. The action was done in one go, but the next second, he started texting me from another number. I really couldn't take it anymore, so I just put my phone on silent. When I arrived, I found Ethan was already waiting for me there. I smiled a bit awkwardly. "Sorry, I'm late." He smiled and said, "It's me who came early." The restaurant wasn't crowded. There were only a few tables of customers. The environment was very quiet. The dishes hadn't been served yet, when suddenly someone broke the silence. "You must be Catherine. Can we talk?" I heard a girl's voice ringing in my ear. I looked up. A beautiful girl in a white tight dress is staring at me with a discontented expression. I can roughly guess who she is. "Sorry, Ethan. I'll be out with her for a moment. I'll be right back." I don't want to argue in the restaurant. I just followed her outside. She asked me, "What do you want to say to me?" I asked directly, "You already have someone else. Why are you still competing with me for James?" The girl in the white dress has red-rimmed eyes, staring at me. She said in a very unfriendly tone, "Last time you messaged me to provoke me. Was it you? What's your name?" I asked calmly. "My name is Sophia. What does it matter if I tell you?" "I'll tell you. James is mine. Don't think that using the childhood sweetheart tactic will make him change his mind about you. It won't work. I love him. I'm willing to stay by his side willingly. Even without a title, I'm still willing. Why are you taking away my right to love him?" Sophia stared at me fiercely. Her eyes were filled with anger, as if she wanted to eat me alive. Her words made me both angry and amused. I couldn't help but speak up. "Are you okay? You clearly knew I was with James back then, and yet you deliberately intervened. As a girl, do you understand what basic morality and shame are? I have already broken up with James. He can like whoever he wants. It has nothing to do with me. A man who dates two people at the same time like him, Catherine wouldn't want him either. If you want him, take him. Also, it's his decision to keep his distance from you. You should ask him directly, not come to ask me. You were so arrogant when you messaged me provocatively before. Why are you panicking now? Does he really prefer to change his mind and treat me better? He doesn't even want to sit down and have a chat with you." I vented all the grievances I had bottled up for a long time. Sophia was so angry her face turned pale. I let out a cold laugh. I shot her a glance. "Didn't you see that when you came to find me earlier? I have better options. Why cling to this one path about you and James? I respect and bless you both. I hope you can stay together forever. By the way, now that he's left you, I need to hurry back for dinner. I won't see you off. I'm too lazy to say anything more." I turned and left. On the way back, I temporarily removed James from the blacklist. I sent him a text message. "Keep your people in check. Don't let her make a scene in front of me." After sending the message, I added him back to the blacklist. Back at the restaurant, Ethan asked me with a smile, "Everything has been taken care of." I could tell Ethan was joking. He nodded with a smile. "That's right. Everything is settled. After we finish eating, I'm prepared to pay." But I found out the bill had already been settled. "No need to guess. It must have been settled while I was out just now," he told me. "I've already paid. You can pay next time we eat. I hope we can see each other again." Ethan was afraid I would be angry. He spoke before I could. "I hadn't noticed before. You really know how to seize an opportunity." I helplessly touched my forehead. Ethan pulled out a bunch of bright red roses from under the table and handed them to me, looking at me seriously. "So do we have a chance to meet again? Or let me rephrase that. Would you consider letting me be your boyfriend? I hope to stand up for you openly when you feel wronged and support you without hesitation. If you don't agree, I will come back later to ask for your thoughts. I'll wait for you until the day you agree to me." I watched Ethan seriously confess to me. The tips of his ears turned slightly red. His eyelashes fluttered continuously, unintentionally revealing his nervousness and unease. At that moment, I recalled Sophia, who had just come to find me, and that James who kept pestering me. At the class reunion yesterday, the scene where Ethan helped me suddenly replaced all other images. I took the rose. I said a bit shyly, "I agreed, boyfriend." Ethan's usually gentle face showed an uncontainable, radiant smile. He hugged me tightly, his voice deep and filled with joy. "That's great. Catherine, thank you. I informed both our parents about me and Ethan being together. Both families were particularly happy. They couldn't wait for us to get our marriage license immediately. I don't really want to get married that early." I didn't expect Ethan to see through my thoughts. He took the initiative to suggest waiting a year or two to get married. After all, we are still young, but we can get engaged first. After both families discussed it, They decided to get engaged before the wedding. They started busy preparations. Many relatives and friends were invited to attend. As neighbors, the James family also received an invitation, my mom told me. That day, she invited James's parents over for drinks. James was standing nearby. His face looked particularly bad. James's mom was chatting and laughing with my mom, but under the table, her hand was tightly pinching James's thigh. The force was clearly full strength. At the engagement banquet, Ethan and I went on stage to make our vows together. James was sitting at the table nearby. His eyes were red. He kept drinking one glass after another. His gaze towards me was filled with unspeakable pain and sadness. After the engagement party, Ethan went to see the guests off. I was still attending to the guests who hadn't left. Suddenly, James appeared behind me. His voice was hoarse, filled with an indescribable sadness. "Catherine, let's talk in front of the other guests." I couldn't refuse James. I had no choice but to follow him to a quieter place. He asked me, "Catherine, are you truly sincere with him to make me angry? He bet his whole life on it. It's really not worth it." James's eyes were red. He stared at me and said, "If you tell me that you're not truly with him, I could take you away right now." James's words made me unable to help but laugh. I said to him, "James, do I look like the kind of person who would risk their whole life just to spite someone I like Ethan? I truly want to be with him." So we got engaged. James looks very upset. He looks at me in disbelief. He says with a trembling voice, "Then tell me, did you ever love me? This moment? I feel ridiculous about my past thoughts." "James, no matter what you do, you shouldn't question my feelings for you before. If I hadn't loved you, how could I have truly reached the point of discussing marriage with your parents? James, you were the one who cheated first. How can you still have the face to question me?" As soon as Ethan finished speaking, he came to find me. He shouted, "Catherine, come here." Ethan waved at me. I lifted my skirt and hurriedly ran towards him. "Did you send off the guests at the door?" He gently patted my head. His tone was gentle. Everyone has been sent away while talking." He glanced over at James, whether intentionally or not. Then he asked me, "He came to find you again?" "Yeah, but I let him go. I also told him not to bother me again in the future." "Catherine, I still couldn't help but feel jealous." "What should I do?" Ethan looked at me with a hint of grievance. His tone had a sour taste to it. "This is the first time I've seen him look jealous." It felt quite fresh. "This is the first time I've seen you jealous. I thought you wouldn't be. No way. Every time I see James circling around you, I can't help but feel jealous. But I didn't dare to tell you. I was worried you'd be upset that I was jealous." I looked at Ethan's aggrieved expression. I couldn't help but reach out and hug him. "No way. Your jealous look is quite cute. I really like it." James is standing not far away, watching me hug Ethan. His expression looks quite lost. His eyes are filled with regret. Ever since I got together with Ethan has always been very considerate of me. He always remembers my monthly cycle. He takes good care of my feelings. If he finishes work early, he will come to pick me up from the office, at home. Ethan never lets me cook. He prepares all the meals every day. I occasionally want to help out, but he always pushes me out of the kitchen after he finishes cooking. He comes over to coax me to eat. Every time we argue, it's always him who apologizes first. If I ignore him for more than 3 hours, he will come to apologize with red eyes. "Catherine, don't be angry, okay? All right." Every time he does this to coax me, I just softened my heart. As a result, I unknowingly ended up in bed with him. Life was peaceful and happy. It was filled with warmth and joy. Later on, I heard my mom mention it. A woman got involved with James. She claimed she was pregnant with his child. James wanted her to terminate the pregnancy, but she was unwilling. The matter escalated to James's family. James's dad and mom thought it was too embarrassing. They forced James to marry her and insisted that she give birth to the child. In the end, James had no choice. He had to obtain a marriage certificate with her. The two of them couldn't stand each other every day. They often argued. Their voices were loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Life was a complete mess. To sum it all up, I feel a bit sentimental. That woman, I think I know, it must be Sophia. She likes James, but James clearly has no feelings for her. Being together out of obligation will only turn them into a pair of complaining partners. My mom told me this. Actually, she wanted me to feel a bit better after hearing it. "Mom, don't mention James again. I've completely lost interest in him. Whether he is doing well or not, it's none of my business from now on. My life will only include my parents and Ethan. Those bad things and people are not worth my time and effort to care about.